In Washington, one of the big subjects right now is infrastructure. What's going to get done in infrastructure? Give us the perspective from the Department of Agriculture, and maybe more importantly, from the perspective of the farmer. What is at stake in the infrastructure proposals?
Critically important for American agriculture and farmers, ranchers, and producers. Broadband to expand access to real-time market information, improve transportation system that will allow us to be more competitive in a global market. An opportunity as well to see our ports improved so that we're able to ship more product in and out of the U.S., which will obviously help exports. Tremendous opportunity for us on a variety of fronts. Climate smart agriculture investments to allow farmers to lead this effort at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and at the same time be more profitable. An opportunity as well for bio-based manufacturing to bring jobs back to rural America, which is obviously very important to farm families that need that second off-farm income to be able to keep the farm.
So, Secretary Vilsack, in listening to you, I think what I heard was those advantages really would be embodied in what is being proposed as that bipartisan proposal, the somewhat more modest one. It's still over $1 trillion that seems to be moving forward rather than the second aspect of it. In the second aspect, there's also what I think of as food stamps. I think you call the SNAP program. Talk about that.
Yeah, the second aspect of it is the opportunity as well to strengthen American families. A chance to provide and expand nutrition assistance to families that are struggling so that children have access to quality nutrition, not just during the school year, but also through the summer months. An opportunity to expand better quality meals at school for free and reduced lunch kits by expanding the universe of those who qualify. A chance as well to improve nutrition. All of those wrapped up into the family's portion of the reconciliation package. In addition, child credit. Child care and dependent tax credit, incredibly important to helping struggling families. The ability to get 2 years of pre-K education to get a good start to school, and the opportunity for free college tuition at community colleges or increased Pell Grants if you're going to a 4-year college program, making college more affordable and available. These are critically important to strengthening the American economy. The stronger the American family is, the stronger the American economy will be.
That reconciliation package, as you referred to it, is not quite as far along, as I understand it, at least, in the specifics as the bipartisan version. But we are told that in that reconciliation package, there will be proposals for pay-fors, as they say in Washington, coming for increased taxes. Identify one in particular that we're told might affect the family farm, and that is that step up in basis on inheritance. Are you hearing resistance from farmers? You know this community so well. You come from it. Is there resistance on that, saying that would really hurt us in our family farms because we do have a fair amount of accumulated wealth and inheritance of the farms?
Well, there is concern until you explain to farmers that as long as the family continues to own the farm and continues to operate the farm, there's not going to be a taxable incident. If, in fact, the family decides to sell the farm after mom and dad pass away, at that point, there is $1 million per person exemption, couple, $2 million. If there's a household, a homestead on it, another $500,000. That covers almost 99% of the family farming operations in the country today. When people hear that, they feel a little bit more comfortable about the notion. People do understand that at the end of the day, strengthening the American family, strengthening the American economy, that those who have benefited from the current economy very well, they need to pay their fair share. And I think most people find not only the programs popular, but also the way in which the programs are going to be paid for as popular as well. Bipartisan support across America for these programs.
Secretary Vilsack, as you know, one of the subjects, certainly in financial markets, but more broadly, is the possibility of inflation, and particularly rising food prices. We had Unilever, for example, come out yesterday and say they think it's the worst they've seen in 10 years. What are you seeing in terms of food prices? Do we have an inflation challenge right now that we're facing?
Well, I think there's also a challenge to sort of separate the food that is purchased for the home versus the food that's purchased outside the home. We're seeing obviously increases in outside the home food costs, pretty significant. The overall food inflation rate is not that much higher than it normally is. There are certain selected items in the grocery store that folks may see, at least for a period of time, increased costs. But we think this is going to even out, if you will, as we sort of begin to recover, as we begin to get the supply and the demand in a better balance. I think you're going to continue. You will see a moderation of the food inflation.
One of the inputs into cost, obviously, is labor costs. Talk about what the family farmer or other farmers are facing right now in terms of labor. Is there a shortage of labor? Are they having to pay increased wages?
Well, I think the family farmers are very interested in having Congress take action on a broken immigration system. There is a bipartisan bill that passed the House that's now in the Senate, has strong agricultural support from over 80 agriculture groups, basically modernizing the ag workforce, basically providing an opportunity for legitimacy of the current workforce of 2.4 million workers, about half of them probably undocumented workers, giving them an opportunity to come out of the shadows, providing stability as well as a structure that both labor and farm groups are supportive of. Certainly would hope that the Senate would take that particular proposal very seriously and get it passed. Again, passed in a very strong bipartisan vote in the House.
Secretary Vilsack, for those concerned about inflation in the country, one of the things they say is if we can adjust some of the trade, particularly reduce some tariff barriers, that might actually ameliorate some of the increased pressure on costs. Is that true in the agriculture sector? Could you take us through what's going on with trade right now for you?
Well, right now we're looking at a projected record amount of ag exports for 2021, breaking the record that I think was set about 8 years ago during the Obama administration. And I think the big challenge, I think, from an ag export perspective, tariffs obviously an issue, but a bigger issue, I think, is the need for diversification of the customer base that we have. We're pretty dependent and pretty reliant on a handful of countries for ag exports, and I would like to see, hopefully over time, the opportunity for us to expand in some additional markets, particularly in Southeast Asia.
Secretary Vilsack, as you know well, President Biden now has an executive order on competition. And for a lot of us expecting that, we thought it would be a lot about big tech. And there is that in there. But also, your department features pretty prominently in the executive order. Could you give us a sense of what the most important aspects of that order are for the farmer, for agriculture, and particularly ones you can make some progress on in the short term?
Well, I think President Biden understands that if you are going to get more new and better markets for farmers, they have to be open and transparent. And the competition executive order directs the Department of Agriculture to take steps to strengthen the regulatory system that oversees our processing industry, for example, providing farmers perhaps better balance and more protections from the Packers and Stockyards Act. I think the president understands we need better price discovery so that we really understand exactly what the market is and what it isn't, whether people are being taken advantage of. I think he also understands and appreciates the need for more competition and more processing capacity. And we recently announced a $500 million effort to try to expand and leverage resources in the private sector and the nonprofit sector to expand and to strengthen and make our system more resilient. He also wants us to take a look as well. And the fact that we've got so few seed companies in the country today, is there a way in which we can enhance opportunities for input costs? And finally, farmers buy a lot of very expensive machinery. But it also appears to be very expensive to repair that machinery. And this executive order is directing the opportunity for farmers to essentially have the right to repair, which should bring down costs.
Yeah, my understanding, you can correct me, is that more is the FTC's responsibility than the right to repair. But specifically on the Packers and Stockyards Act, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know about that act, I think, before I read this executive order. But that seems to be within your jurisdiction. How fast can you get that done? Is that a notice and comment? Does that take some months or even years?
It will take some time, but we've already worked on this during the Obama administration, so it's not going to take as long as it would normally take. We have a very good idea about how to draw a bright line on discriminatory practices, a bright line on how we need to change the burden of proof, if you will, to prove a violation of Packers and Stockyards, and a bright line on trying to protect poultry growers, particularly as they relate to a ranking system that the industry uses. So I think we're going to see significant action on that in the very near term to send a message to producers across the country that we're looking for more open and transparent and fair markets.
Finally, Mr. Secretary, you mentioned earlier the president's climate policies. Give us a sense of what that does to the farmer, because I can imagine some benefits, maybe with some of the carbon capture provisions that might make some money off of, but also it might increase costs. What does it mean for the average farmer?
Well, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. If we're truly serious about reducing our emissions countrywide, and economy-wide, I think agriculture has the opportunity to basically start that process, to lead that effort. I think we can get to a net zero emission future perhaps quicker than some other aspects of our economy. And for American farmers, I think the challenge is to create a number of opportunities, income opportunities out of the climate challenge to encourage embracing climate smart agricultural practices. This means increasing significantly the amount of money we put in traditional conservation programs and trying to meet the backlog that we already know exists in that space, but also creating new and innovative ways for farmers to take full advantage of the market opportunity that's created here. I think many chains, many grocery stores are anxious to be able to market whatever they're selling in their grocery store as being sustainably produced. That's a value-added proposition. We want to put farmers in a position to take full advantage of that value-added proposition, and in turn also be able to potentially qualify for carbon credit markets that may be set up as well.
So, Mr. Secretary, do the farmers understand what you just said? You said it's a great opportunity, the climate thing. Do they see it that way, or does there need to be some persuasion there?
Well, there's a growing understanding of this. I would say if you asked that question several years ago, I would indicate that there was quite a bit of work to do to begin the process of laying the ground for this. But we're now seeing a number of farm groups who are supporting the notion of moving forward on this. The American Farm Bureau, National Farmers Union, and others have indicated and understand and appreciate the opportunity side and want to take full advantage of it. So I think we're seeing a growing understanding and appreciation for the opportunity side. We at USDA now have to create a mechanism to seize on that momentum to take the next step forward.